Yeah, this one verse here is just absolutely astounding. And then, of course, taking its relationship to everything that we've just seen as it leads up to this loosing of the bands of the Orion. And, of course, the connection to the sweet influences of the Pleiades, which is going to be the Golden Age. That's the flip side of the coin, that Orion is going to bring the judgment, and then after the judgment we have the Pleiades, which is going to exalt this Golden Age. And this is that Iraqi dinar, which is showing who's going to be exalted, who's getting the glory here, who's going to rule with the coming bulls. That's what we would call the Sumerian gods. We've shown the scripture that supports it about these arrival of the bulls, that the unicorns are going to come down with them. We have these 7 dots here on either side of this Masonic royal arch. The 7 dots represent the 7 stars of the Pleiades. And of course, that is the after the judgment. Here's the judgment right here. After this judgment, which I told you is going to be symbolized as the destruction of Christianity, being brought about by the ideologies of the mystery religions as it's manifested itself into the unbelieving nations of Ephraim, which are symbolized by the olive branches that we see now between the United Nations and the United States, and of course all over our money. This is the Golden Age. Notice that in the other videos I said that Ephraim was symbolic for 2 pasture lands. And then of course here's that green, which now begins to transfer itself over to the other land, which is now gold. And this is going to be the Golden Age. So after Ephraim does the work, then we experience the Golden Age. And of course we've got to have that judgment first, and that we're seeing that the aliens are fulfilling the role of this judgment. They're fulfilling the same biblical role that Dan is supposed to fulfill in the last days. We're showing that Dan is locust, and then the locusts match the description of the Pleiadians. I mean, this thing doesn't get any more intense. Well, it is. It's about to get a lot more intense, especially for my long-term listeners that have been with me for a long time here. We're going to look here at chapter 38, which I'm telling you now is really the complete and perfect description of the abyss location and even the time before they went into the abyss. Remember I read in the Sumerian tablets where they started digging out the Apsu, and I said that that was after the rebellion. Something happened. I've always told you guys that there was a time when the sons of God were all good, that there was no rebellion, and they were all working for the good of the earth. And I told you that even Lucifer himself was created as a good being, as a incredible being of light, who of course once he rebelled, then of course this iniquity was born, and of course it's flooded into our material domain, because Lucifer himself was created to administer over this material creation in a spiritual way. He was to handle the spiritual affairs of our creation until Jesus Christ fully manifested himself to this world in the flesh. But we know that way before that happened, that Lucifer rebelled. The point that I'm trying to get to is that I told you that all the sons of God, before the rebellion, they were all on this planet working for the good, and that there was a split, that there was 2 factions develop. We see this manifest even as it enters into the division of the 2 houses of Israel, from the house of Judah and then from the house of the unicorn, from the house of northern Israel, which is being led by the Ephraimites. And we know that they all have connections back to the fallen sons of God of Genesis 6 through their Hebrew Israelite lineage from the Cain and Abel story, where Cain goes to the land of Nod, and then we get these Nodites that begin to foster this Jewish patriarchal lineage. Then of course we see them separate that lineage and try to cover it up. Well, we know why they're covering up. But the point I want to make here is that this line right here is going to fully support what I've said in 2 big ways. And we're going to have time to just explain one of them. And I want you to see that this is taking place at the beginnings of time, the beginning of the foundation of the world. And verse 7 says, when the morning stars sang together and all of the sons of God shouted for joy. We're talking about a time in the beginning when all of the sons of God shouted for joy. And he's asking that question. You know, do you have this understanding when there was this time on earth when all the sons of God were together before the rebellion? And then he even says it about the morning stars, that the morning stars were singing together. And I told you that Lucifer at one time was good. He is